Hi, everybody, and welcome to New England Homes virtual presentation on the new norm of the landscape design. My name's Kathy Bush-Dutton. I'm the publisher of New England Home. We've missed you all at our networking events, so we're glad to have you all here today for the panel. We're going to hear today from several prestigious design firms, including Colin Flavin from Flavin Architects. We have Gregory Lombardi, the principal of Gregory Lombardi Design, Kristen Rivoli of Kristen Rivoli Interiors, Bob Ernst, the CEO of FBN Construction, Sean Cote, the Director of Business Development at Concerted, and our moderator for today is Jennifer Driscoll from Broadview Marketing. So thank you all for joining us. I'll let you jump in because I'm sure you have lots to share with us, and I'm going to disappear. I'll be back later.
Take
it away,
great.
Jen.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. I'm very excited about today's presentation. I know this has been a big time of transition and change for our industry and all those that play a role in it. A few weeks ago, I was talking to Jill, who many of you know is the Executive Sales Manager at New England Home Magazine, and she felt compelled to pull this event together and really reach out and help business owners and sales professionals and design professionals understand what's going on and how to make decisions in this type of new environment that we are all working in. So while we don't have an answer for everything, and we definitely can't predict what's going to happen by the end of this year, we can all put our heads together and share some innovative ideas and our experiences today. So I want to start off by, I was thinking about today's topic, and I noticed that there are three types of interaction that all of us have in our field of work. And today we're really talking to the designers of our industry, so the service side of our industry. And on Friday, we're going to continue this webinar and talk to the suppliers. So that being said, our designers have to work and interact with their clients, B2B on construction site, with suppliers in showrooms and other places, and also with their own employees. So given those three types of interactions, I'm going to start with Colin. Colin, how does this affect you as an architect, your staff, and your overall brick and mortar operations?
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks for the question, and thanks for inviting me on the panel. I first want to start by saying how difficult a time it's been, I think, and challenging for all of us, and particularly those who work in jobs where they don't have the ability to work from home as we architects do. So just to appreciate, it's been tough. And also just a shout out to those who have young children at home. I know it's a whole nother layer of difficulty for those of you, and I really appreciate that you're getting through it. I've had a really interesting experience over the past year. I've taken a course on the business of architecture, which is conducted 100% online. It's conducted on, of course, on Zoom and backed up with Trello and Google Docs. So that's been over the past year. So I had sort of an introduction to what was coming, perhaps, but I had no idea I was going to wind up leading my life on Zoom. And I think all of us realize just how exhausting it really is. It's an incredible collaborative tool, but it's exhausting and it has its limitations. But a couple more things about this course that I think are really interesting. One is a book they recommended that we all read, which is called Deep Work. And it really talks about the importance of guarding your time as a creative person, up to blocks of 90 minutes of time to really do your best work, your most creative work, the work that you're most passionate about. And the ironic thing is, during the course, I've had a really difficult time actually doing that. And now that the pandemic has arrived, I'm not commuting, I'm not taking lunch breaks, I'm probably working longer days, and I have been able to commit to these 90-minute blocks. And which for me is actually sitting at a drawing table and making architectural drawings, a novel thought, which I unfortunately don't get to do nearly as much as I would like to. I've been able to do that, and it's really helped me get through it. So I just, I can't underline enough how important it's been to be able to be creative in this time as a sort of salve to what we're all kind of anxious about. The other piece that I was going to just touch on a little bit was another piece, topic in the course, was the importance of a staff meeting every Monday. And again, it's something that we've had a really difficult time at our firm making happen. There's always a crisis comes up, a client wants to see us, there's something issue on a construction site. But we've now consistently done these Monday morning meetings, 9 o'clock, every single week of the pandemic. Much better record than we ever had before. And the really neat thing is we always start with a big win. Like, what is some good news, a la John Krasinski? What's a good news story that we can tell? Did a client like one of our designs? Did a detail get pulled off well in the field? Just something to kind of lift the spirits. And then we try and share something interesting each staff member has done in the prior week. We call it the lightning round. So I might have done a sketch that has something I think interesting for people, and it's just fascinating what people find is important about their work and the incredible amount of pride that people have in their projects. And then we move on to our standard weekly meeting. And I guess I'd close by saying, in terms of our workplace, I imagine that we're going to go back to our office, but I can't imagine that we're going to go back the way we were before. I think we've found that the potential for collaborating, from having more flexible work hours to not having to fight traffic, is something we'll have to really think deeply about how we want to go forward. So I don't have the answer, but I imagine it's going to look a little different than the way it did before the pandemic came.
Thank you. No, I agree. I think it's amazing how this pandemic has made us relook at our everyday patterns of work and think about how we can find ways to maybe be more productive. And so it's interesting that you have found ways, and I think we would all like 90 minutes to ourselves each day just to focus on a project at a time. So thanks for sharing that. Bob, can you share what you are discovering as you interact with current clients and prospects as well?
Sure. Well, it's what I'm finding is what I'm finding even in my own company, in my friends and family. We're all going through a lot and having to adjust our moods, and they tend to change almost on a daily basis as we get more information. It's settled down a little bit over the last week, but early on, we had some projects that we were forced to shut down because of local bylaws or local regulations. And most of those people handled it pretty well initially. Some people wanted to try to keep going. In other cases, we were allowed to continue with some work. We came up with great safety protocols, submitted them to our customers. And the majority of our customers wanted to proceed, given the criteria. Of course, some of them, their kitchens were torn apart before they shut down, and now they had to shut down, stay in place with no kitchen, maybe no master bathroom. First world problems, I guess. But at the same time, it makes things more difficult, especially with children at home from school. So dealing with them in a very sensitive and considerate way, I think, more so than even our typical FBN approach, really had to allow for it. And getting them comfortable with the process. We had one slight scare where we had a sort of secondary contact that may have reached out to one of our subcontractors, but he was immediately quarantined. We took a couple of days off the site. We were able to find out that was secondary, and our clients initially wanted to stop. They were like, hey, maybe this is just too close, but after about 48 hours, they called us back and said, actually, we'd like to keep going now, can we? So we've had a few fits and starts like that. We've had some towns change their regulations and clients being frustrated with us. But once we explained, it's been working out. I'd say we're fortunate that our customers are handling things the way apparently a lot of our fellow citizens are doing it, and it's working, and people are being considerate. So adjusting to the adjusting moods, just like you have to with everybody else.
Okay. So a lot of communication, a lot of staying in touch with clients, and adjusting as needed. Greg, you primarily work outside. How is our new norm affecting your process of design and work?
Yeah, it's actually our industry is ready to be an exterior effort, but what I found is that we were able to utilize our system for networking in the office to make sure that all the employees had work to do and felt engaged in the process. We had from actually left over from the snow days that we've been having increasingly. So we have a very developed network through the server and Wi-Fi. So we got that in place, and it was easy to start to rely on that. I think the bigger challenge was starting to create the protocols for everybody within the office, to make sure that getting used to what the new normal is, that we could still run projects. I think for us to be outside, what we found really helpful is that we can go to a site and document the site, and then try to create an expectation with a client how the design process is going to go. So we can walk through on Zoom or another platform where we can tour the site together, and in that way find what their priorities are. Because I think for me, the biggest challenge has been the collaborative nature of design, how I like to do it, which this model has really pushed, which I like sitting down with my team. I like sketching. So there's sort of like one more layer between that. And that can be, you have to sort of manage the efficiencies of that or non-efficiencies of that and the frustrations of that. And like me putting trace over the screen and drawing on the screen and then taking a photo of it and sending it out again. So there's just a different layering. And now that we're at 2 months, our office closed 2 months ago today. It's amazing how much work we're getting done, and the relentlessness of these meetings. That I think that's also a burnout factor for us professionals, is that this stuff is coming. You're doing one meeting that goes right into the next meeting. You don't have time in a car. You don't have time to get up and do normal chit chat. So there's a very focused concentration. And I think challenging is to the client, like I think we have to help them understand how they're a consumer of this new normal. Like, how are they going to work with us? It doesn't mean the process is going to stop because this is happening. It can still work behind the scenes and building their confidence. And I think it's more of getting them used to the idea that this is how it's going to go. I think that, and then that leads into the next challenge for us as designers, is we can get the work done, but from a marketing standpoint, how do we access the clients to bring in new work where people are naturally hesitant? And so that means more outreach, emails. I send things occasionally, sometimes that look a little alarming, like birthday wishes from me, my late night musings on my life and thoughts. But those are the kind of connections I think that build that personal nature of this, make everyone feel like we're in it together.
Okay, lots of good ideas there. Kristen, what problems and solutions are you discovering now with social distancing and the work that you do?
So we were right in the middle of pulling together a presentation when everything kind of shut down in the city of Boston. And we suddenly found ourselves trying to figure out how we were going to continue pulling this presentation together and also presenting it to our client in the way that I like to do. Like Greg said, our industry and our profession is a one-on-one. It's a real connection with our client. It's very personal. It's really an intimate conversation that we're having with them about their homes. And so to find yourself having to do that over Zoom was, a big change and a challenge. So we were able to obviously pull PowerPoint presentation together. We did a Zoom meeting with our client. Of course, it's not the way that I would prefer to do it, but we made it work, and we still put our boards together with our materials on it because, what we do has so much tactile, touch, feel, look at the materials. So our vendors on that side of it, our vendors were really great as far as calling us up or me being able to call them, ask for samples to have them shipped to me, at my home. I was able to get boards printed up. After our meeting, I was able to do a porch drop off of my presentation boards to my client. And then we had a follow-up meeting where we were able to talk about the materials that she was actually able to touch and feel that she had seen on our PowerPoint presentation. So, it's a little less efficient, time consuming to pull it together, a little less personal, but we're doing the best that we can, and I'm looking forward to when we can get back to meeting face to face. But I will say the showrooms have been great. All of the manufacturers have been fantastic as far as reaching out to us and letting us know that they're there. They're available to send samples to us. So I've never felt worried about not having materials and that I needed for my client.
Okay. This is really good. I'm hearing a lot of walkarounds of what we are used to doing in our daily work life, and clients, I think, are expecting these alternatives and appreciate them. And there's new layers. I think, the Zoom meetings take up the time that we used to have in the car and our commute. And there's another component to this, and that's technology. So Sean, technology is blowing up now more than ever before. As a design solution for home integration, what problems and solutions are you experiencing?
Absolutely. So the technology systems that we are designing and installing are being tested more than ever before. And so people are now in their homes using their systems all day, every day, whether they're working from home, whether their kids are now remote learning, or if they're just binging Tiger King on Netflix at 2 a.m. There is no downtime for these systems. And with that, there is a lot of support that these systems need. And it's a challenging time for us because we cannot be in their homes and we cannot be sitting right next to our clients experiencing the problems that they're experiencing with their systems. And so how do we get around that? Well, the first way is the technical side, the stuff that we've been doing for the last year and we just keep improving on, which is remote restarting of their systems, looking at their network from our homes and seeing what's not working and what can be working. But then there's the other side that needs a serious learning curve, and that's using Zoom and FaceTime to communicate with the client to figure out what the problem is. And it's not as simple as logging into Zoom, and it's not as simple as hopping on a FaceTime because it's awkward. It's a new medium of communication where you're not getting those external cues and understanding the client's frustration, or even having the client over your shoulder now, where you wouldn't have had that if we had entered their house before as you're trying to troubleshoot. And so that's been an interesting way. And so what we've been doing is actually practicing with each other in the office, well, not in the office, but on Zoom with each other to figure out those issues, to have those jokes and small talk and everything beforehand, and then work with the client to point us physically by camera in the right direction to figure out what the issues are. And so it's something, I mean, even with sales, it's the same thing. It's trying to figure that out. And it's something that now that we've started to figure it out, and it's definitely been a learning curve, that we'll probably keep doing because it's so fast for us to be able to solve a problem than to roll a truck. And so it's been helpful actually in the long run.
Oh, that's great to hear. Now, and those are some really good ideas too. I think trying to figure out how to react and read reactions over Zoom has been testing for everybody, and it's something that we're all trying to learn and adapt to now. I want to move on to how this pandemic has forced homeowners to face design inefficiencies in their home, as well as consider a potential new way of life as states slowly open up again. So what new needs do each of you see originating from this unique dilemma for homeowners in the design or renovation of their home? And I'm just gonna quickly go around. I'm gonna start with Bob.
Sure. We see the trends going from open floor plans, wide open floor plans to somewhat less was happening anyway, I think. And I'm noticing with what's going on now, I think our clients are going to want even more sort of individual spaces to allow them to work from home. I do think and hope for traffic reasons that more people will find that this is workable and that they will be able to work from home, and it'll create a whole need for not just one maybe home office, but maybe two home offices for each of the adults, and space for the kids to play and to do what they want to do while the parents are home. So I think more individual spaces to have to yourself. That being said, I still, and I've said this for a while, people don't really want to go away from the open floor plan. They like that when they like it. It's just if they have the space and maybe they'll need some more, Colin can draw an addition, and they can have both. That's the idea, right?
Okay. Colin, can you add to that?
Yeah, I would add that intimacy is what I'm hearing a lot from clients. Current projects, we're finding that clients are trying to reduce the size of the house. Yes, to save on the construction costs, but to create a more intimate environment. We're definitely hearing people wanting their homes connected to their gardens and landscapes in a very, very significant way that I think is one of my passions in life, and I know Greg super shares this with me. This kind of sense of unity of home and nature, that we're here now 24/7. It's our home, it's our workplace. Let's have a place that we're also connected to nature and we're connected to each other.
Perfect. Okay, Kristen?
Yes. Well, I will say that everybody being home, like Colin said, 24/7 has definitely pushed the functionality of all of our rooms to the max. And especially for families who have kids, like we've all said, there are families who have really young children who are still having to learn. And then I have two teenagers who are in high school, and so they've got to have a different way of doing schoolwork. So it's great we're all able to go to our spaces and have the privacy we need to have heads down work. But when you have younger kids, you actually have to be side by side with them. A lot of parents need to be doing the work with them or around them. They want to monitor what they're doing on the computer. They want to make sure that the work is getting done. So we're looking at spaces. I think some of the most successful workspaces for kids that we've seen and families is off of the kitchen or in that area where it's a larger room. There's work counter all around where several people can be, whether it's a parent and a child. The ability to close the door if you need to close the door, because again, a lot of people are on these Zoom meetings and we need to have the privacy to not hear any background noise. So we just are trying to make sure that people have those spaces in their homes. A lot of the homes that I've done, we've provided home offices, workspaces, and family workspaces like that.
Okay. Yeah, we're reinventing my house as we speak. This all happened. Rooms have different purposes and some rooms have multiple purposes. It's almost maddening at times, but it does make you think. Sean, how does technology play into that?
So one interesting thing that came up yesterday on the news is that the Twitter CEO has now made remote work forever. You do not have to come to the office if you work for Twitter. And that is such a large company for them to make that statement going forward. And so you're going to see a lot more companies start to look at working from home and having a space for work at home as well. And so when I look at it from a technology standpoint and what you're actually going to need, the first basic piece is high-speed internet and having the bandwidth so that you're not asking everybody else to turn off your disconnect all your devices because I got to get on a video conference. And also looking at the fact that you're going to have client information and you need a firewall and you know how to have security in place in your internet so that you're not causing vulnerabilities inside by having remote work. The second is your video conference setup. And that can go in two ways. For me, right now, I'm just using a laptop with a webcam, but I have clients who are now going as far as to put a TV up, or one of my favorite clients is a smart board, a Microsoft Hub, so that he has a camera on it and he can sit back and you can see his body language and feel like you're in the room with him, but also he can write on the board and shoot it onto everybody's screen at the same time and look at charts and finances. But then there's the things that you don't necessarily think of right away for a home space, which is sound. So as we've been saying before, children are home now and there's a lot of screaming and shouting in the background. And so you can use sound to sound mask and to bring it up so that you're not hearing everything else in the background and you feel like you have that private space. The other two things that I think are important for productivity is automated shades and lighting. So as you're working throughout the day, you may not have noticed that your office now has a glare in the room. The sun comes in at noon. Well, every day, are you going to go close that shade at noon, or are you not going to open that shade, or are you going to have the shade automatically come down a third of the way? I know we're getting into the summer season, but in the winter, if we're still working from home and we're doing everything, are you squinting at your screen? Are you so into what you're doing at 4 or 5 o'clock when the sun's going down that you're not turning on the lights? Or are you having the lights turn on for you? And just piecing all of this together to make a great workspace is definitely going to be at least some of the conversations you've already been having, but continue going forward as well.
Well, and I think that overcomes some of the challenges that we're having with just Zoom meetings and not realizing some of those interferences with our work that you mentioned and how those can easily be solved. And now that the weather's finally getting warmer, can we talk about outdoor spaces? Greg.
I'm up. Yeah, I mean, I think building on a lot of what everyone has said, the client focus on their spaces, and I want to say there's almost like a rise in utilitarianism, like people want to understand how to maximize not just their inside spaces, but outside. And I think what's wonderful about that, in my opinion, is it's sort of the culmination of, American, like the value system saying that landscape is more than just the garnish around the building. It's actually a series of spaces, whether they're views from the house that are passive, whether they're active connections, as Colin mentioned. Like, these are ways that they can make your life richer. And there is a whole subset of opportunities, whether it's the outdoor, they're not just outdoor kitchens and grills anymore. We're doing like high top cocktail stations so people can hang out and interact the way that they really live. We're seeing more lounging fire pits and outdoor showers, and this really blurring the inside outside line. And I think what's an interesting trend that I'm seeing, we've been sort of following, I want to say, the new demographics of, are people really wanting to build giant extravagance like into their homes? Do they need that scale? Are they more judicious about what they choose? And they want less stuff, they want better stuff, and they wanted high functioning stuff. So there's almost like a social responsibility and I want to say environmental awareness to this, that people want to have these functioning homes. It's not just enough that we're just going to throw the parsley around the pig, is what some people have said to me, but I like to think it's more elevated than that. But people now are really challenging us. And I think for us, what we've been doing is working with them to do a deeper dive on program creation. Like, what are the possibilities? And have precedent images ready to show them, here's other things that you could think of. And here's maybe, and they're sort of an unprecedented, like, malleability. People are willing to listen because they're so focused now in their home environments, and do they work for them? And now that the outside spaces are starting to become, we've been looking at them for the last 2 months, but now we're going to start living in them. So we're sort of guiding them in that process.
And I think it's timely. I mean, now more than ever, after living inside your home for 2 months, to be able to have that extension of your home outdoor and find those private spaces or those, spaces where you can actually social distance is huge right now. So I imagine you're going to be very busy.
Right.
So I'm going to move on to the last question that I have. And before I do, I just want to remind everybody, if you have questions that you would like answered, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of this. So after this round, we're going to jump into Q&A. So we did get your questions before as you registered for this event, and we kept some of those aside for our panelists to answer today. So don't worry about duplicating those in the Q&A, but if you did not get a chance to submit a question or you have a new question, I invite you to go ahead and submit those in the Q&A. Kathy is monitoring those for us, and we'll move into the Q&A shortly. Before we do, I want to talk about, we've talked about operations, interaction, how the home design is going to change with this new norm. And I want to move into marketing. I've had all of my clients have contacted me, and there's a panic about what to do. I think Greg mentioned earlier about how to reach out to your potential prospects and stay in front of mind, and those people that are focusing on their homes, how do you address them? How do you reach out to them? So this pandemic not only affects how you conduct business now, but it also affects your marketing efforts. And we have more people at home for longer periods of time, hunkered down with the internet, hunkered down with their pile of magazines that they haven't had the chance maybe to get to until now, and they are just surrounded by their home and having to address the changes that are going to be potentially long-term for a lot of us. So if you've been looking for a competitive edge for your company, I always say now is the time. There's no time better than now to get the message out about how you're doing business differently, and how you plan on interacting with clients, and touching on what Bob and Greg said earlier, and setting those expectations up, and understanding the alternatives that you have to your work style that you can share with potential clients. Even on the B2B side, there are different things that we can do among the trade. As an example, a client of mine, Herrick & White, is a well-known architectural woodworking firm. They have started conducting virtual coffee chats on Wednesdays and Fridays of each week for business owners and sales professionals in New England's design industry to cover topics and innovative solutions for working around COVID-19 limitations. So if anybody's interested, I invite you to go to their website. It's herrick-white.com, and they have a button at the bottom that references COVID-19, and you can go there and sign up for their next chat. But I want to go and now address Sean. You have an interesting new detail about your personal position with Concerted that homeowners are going to find really valuable. Can you share some information with us?
Yep. So we've been marketing and talking to our clients about taking a holistic approach to health and wellness throughout their home. So COVID-19 has emphasized the importance of cleaning and sanitizing surfaces, but now is the time to take a look at the overall big picture of health and wellness. So in order for me to speak intelligently on these solutions, I'm in the process of becoming a well-accredited professional with the International Building Institute. The focus of the accreditation is to improve human health and well-being in the built environment. And although it's a commercial certification, many of the ideas can be implemented into a high-end residential space. And I would recommend that everybody take a look at the case studies and examples that they're doing, and even though it's maybe in a commercial space, and what you can do in your own designs and talk to your clients about now that they're stuck at home or they're spending more time at home. For us, there's 7 categories of well, but we're focusing on 3 of them. And the first one is light and its impact on your internal clock, your circadian rhythm. I mean, Kathy, this would have been a great poll question, but I'd be curious how many people out there are feeling a bit off sometimes, or they're going to bed late, they're waking up late, they're not eating at the same times. The reason for that is not just because you don't have a routine anymore, and it's not just because you may not have the work that you used to have, but it's because your body needs external cues. And you can get that through going outside and getting light and looking at the light changes throughout the day. And so we've been working with New England Home Magazine to show this new light called Ketra that mimics the color temperature changes throughout the day dynamically, so that it tricks your circadian rhythm into continuing moving forward and keeping all of your cycles in the right path. The other one is air. I mean, we're stuck inside so much more, and it's so important that we look at filtering this air out. And whether that is looking at, from a design perspective, off-gassing on furniture or paints, or looking at green guarded fabrics that don't allow VOC emissions to come off as much. And if you can't necessarily do that right now, or you can't control what the client's putting in the home, then putting in a centralized air filtration system. It doesn't have to cost thousands of dollars. You can get an air molecule to do so. And then the final piece of that, and Greg and Colin maybe can speak to this a bit more, is the mind and the impact. I mean, we're social creatures, and we're supposed to be interacting, and we're supposed to be going out drinking and having fun with everybody. And we can't necessarily do that as much anymore, and it has a negative impact on health. Well, a good way to combat this, at least this time, is to get at least 20 minutes of nature and connect with yourself, whether that's outside when possible, and having Greg build a beautiful place for you to go, a sanctuary. Or if you can't do that and you need to go into Boston, if you're in Boston, you're stuck, simulate nature in some way. Right now, 3 days ago, there was an article from New York where they're actually building biophilic rooms like in Grey's Anatomy. But we're doing that in New York right now to help with recovery because it's motivating. So again, with New England Home, we've worked with that on the latest edition. We've put in an article about human-centric lighting for a new Ketra showroom. We're looking at direct to consumer marketing through Google Ads, and looking at the keywords and the things that our clients are looking for right now, and figuring out how to get that information to them. And finally, because I know I'm kind of rambling here, social media. But it's not just sending out information on social media. Find the channels that work best for you. For me, people who know me, I love LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. It's almost like my hobby. But I know that the people who are going on LinkedIn have a reason to be on LinkedIn. They're looking for something. So how do you get them that information versus other kind of channels? So that's kind of all we've been doing over here.
Okay, no, that sounds great. And along with a lighting solution, I would love to get rid of daylight savings time. I think we'd all function a lot better with that.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Greg, what type of messaging are you going to be using moving forward?
I mean, it's interesting that Sean brought it up, and Colin alluded to it too, but if you think about the regenerative prospect of being in the landscape, it really becomes essential in a way that it's almost, you're going to say, spiritual, that people can really draw on that. And we've been trying to promote an idea, I think, within our office. I think the other thing to keep in mind is our employees and our clients, is that it's almost like the stock market. What's happened to us all collectively that's impacted our environments and the way we live. We need to recreate a sense of, I'll call it like investor confidence. Like, people need to want to venture forward. They need to see the fun in this again. They need to see that there are possibilities, that it's not so much of a dead end, that there are more ways to interact. Like we do, as Colin mentioned, we do a Monday morning meeting with the full staff, and it's the giant Brady Bunch thing, and everyone and kids in the background, dogs barking, but it lends a humanness to what we're in now. And then on Fridays at 4 o'clock, we always did a happy hour in the office. We do a virtual happy hour. So it's just a chance for people to unwind. And as Sean said, people are really missing that connection. I have some of my employees that are holed up in apartments alone with no one, and not even going out to venture to get food. They're eating stuff that's brought in. So you're trying to like keep up this idea that we are still at core who we are. Let's just expound on that. And I think that's what we need to get out there in the marketing is, nope, this is a normal process. We're going to get through it. We have to create that idea that it's manageable and it's still fun and it's still meaningful. So, and that's the challenge, sort of like I've got to fight with myself every day when I'm not feeling so sparkly. I have to find a way to drum it up and say, you know, put on the game face. There are other generations that have suffered worse things than this, like living through like years of a war on your soil or other kinds of pandemics. So the fact that we can't get our hair cut or, you know, interact at a lounge is probably like on the descending hierarchy of needs. It's not that important. So just like get some perspective back and help to promote that perspective to everyone that works for you and to the clients. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. And I think once you put that human face on your company, prospects and your clients really identify and appreciate that. And so I think that's important. Colin, can you add your thoughts?
Sure. In terms of our marketing I think what we've tried to do is, and well, we've thought about a lot of different things. Certainly there's a lot of talk out there that we're going to need to redesign our workplaces for social distancing. There's a whole, probably a whole ton of work to do there. There's going to be a lot of home renovations, possibly as people reconfigure their home. And as I've thought about it, I think my gut is to stay true to who we are as a firm. And we're very much of a niche firm. And I said it earlier, but our thing is modern homes connected to nature. That's what we do. And so we've not really focused on COVID-19 in any marketing in any way. We're really, I think, alluding to what Greg said, I think empathy, we're trying to we don't really know where everyone's coming from in the world that receives our messages. And we appreciate that some people are coming from, really difficult circumstances. So I think the best thing that we can do is to put inspiring work out there in front of people. I try and make sure that we exhibit the drawings that we do, the creative work. I think there's a sort of a spark of joy and happiness in creativity. And so we try and really put that out there and not kind of go too far down the COVID-19 route, because we're certainly not experts on that at all. But at the same time, I recognize that what we do, creating sanctuaries for people's lives and now their work, is probably never been more relevant than what we're dealing with now. So it's sort of I think fortune is going to coincide with doing really solid work. So that's sort of where we're pointed.
Okay, that's very helpful. Kristen, can you add how you are going to address your marketing as a designer?
Yeah, so I've really been doing something similar to Colin in that I've continued to put out our social media images of projects, talking about the project and what it was all about, maybe what this room is and why and how, but also just underlying that we are still working, we are still available. I think the bottom line is this isn't going to be forever. So temporarily, we're being challenged with how we're going to be able to work, but we'll be able to get back to the way that we used to work soon. So let's just focus on what we do, how we work. I've also been sending out personal emails to my clients because I want to check in on them. Again, we all have these very personal relationships with our clients. I work on a project for 2-3 years sometimes. And so you really get to know your clients. I've done multiple homes for clients. I check in with them to make sure that their families are safe, that they're doing okay, that their home is supporting them. I want to make sure that the designs that we've done together are still the way that they should be, or supporting them in the way that we hope they are. And if not, let's talk, and I'm available, but we are working remotely is the message. And we're still doing design work. We just want to kind of keep putting in that, like sparking that joy, right? See a pretty picture. People don't want to focus on this all the time. So if they're looking at my social media posts, hopefully they're looking for something that's going to make them smile, or see a pretty picture of a beautiful room or a beautiful home. So that's what I've been continuing to do. And similarly, I've been trying to have team check-ins, Zoom meetings, even with vendors and other professionals. We'll have Zoom, happy hours, because we're so used to seeing each other all the time. We're such social people. And we're used to being out and about, and so we want to be able to connect in that way still. So just making sure everyone's okay.
I think that's important, and I think happy hours are saving the world right now. So.
On work Zooms all the time, so a happy hour Zoom is a much happier Zoom time spent.
Exactly. Bob, I hate to leave you for last, and I know a lot of people have already mentioned things that in part you're doing as well. Do you have anything to add in how you're changing your message as a builder?
Yeah, well, we're working on it. Obviously, it's a work in progress. But one of the things that has gotten us through similar problems before with potential economic issues is to focus on marketing during these times, is to recognize that, as the marketplace shrinks, the importance of, market share becomes even more important. So we are continuing to market. We're shifting our message a little, and I think it probably, the message would be more about sort of competence and confidence and expertise in doing what we do, other than just, as Krista said, the beautiful pictures, which are what draws people in, and what people want to see. But we're trying to determine how can we best convey, again, the competence. And I think when people are unsure about what's going on, if there's a question of consumer confidence themselves, feeling comfortable that you have a competent partner can help you make that decision. So that's what we're working on, and I can't say we've come up with an answer yet, but we're shifting our social media strategy a little bit, and trying to figure out how to do that through our media marketing as well. But really, it's about, you can trust us. We're here. We got through this in a very good way and without any problems. You can count on us moving forward. So.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's helpful. I think, as Kristen and Helen were saying before, reaching out and touching base with your clients, your past clients, your prospective clients, I think that's more important than ever. As Greg was saying, some of these folks are alone in their home or their apartment or wherever they may be. And I think, relying on our designers as a resource, not only for how their life is going to move forward, but also somebody that knows them personally and well, it's important to build those relationships right now. And you're not taking advantage of this time. You're simply being a resource, and there's not many of those right now. So I think it's important that we all play that role, and in our messaging, to let people know that we are all open and available. And as Bob pointed out, that you're competent in this new norm, and you're learning and growing your businesses all the time and adapting as needed. I'm going to now close the discussion and open up for Q&A. I know that we had some questions come in before. Kathy, are you still with us? You're there.
I'm here.
So I'm going to pull up my questions. Do you want to pull up a question from your list while I'm pulling this up?
Okay, here's one. Someone's interested in hearing all the panelists' optimism pulse, regardless of whether we're back in full swing in 2 months or 6 months. Will business be strong when that happens, or will the residential construction business be in recession? Who wants to jump on that one? Anybody? Who you pointing to, Bob?
Kristen's up there for me.
I think that people are going to be ready to jump into some redesigns in their home. I think people have been, as we all know, and we've said many times, everybody's been spending 24/7 in their homes. I know I've got like 20 different plans for my house here that I want to redo. And I know that our vendors are ready, they're available. Many manufacturers want to keep working, so they're ready to place orders today. And so I know people are probably going to be ready to jump in. I don't think that it's going to be, if they're economically able to, they will proceed with the project.
Yeah, I agree with Kristen. I'm seeing a lot of pent-up demand. There's a lot of research studies that we get in our office, and the way the economy is rolling around, I think people are less nervous about this upcoming recession. I think it's apparent to people if they're going to be affected or not financially. And, everybody learned a lesson from the last recession. And we've seen, personal savings increase by 9% from the last recession to this recession. So people are planning for these recessions. And I think, this time has definitely made us all focus on our homes, as Kristen was saying. And it's just a matter of waiting for these construction limitations to relax a little bit. for that pent up demand to be allowed to come in.
Okay. Another one you guys can all relate to. How are you guys battling Zoom fatigue? There's so many conversations back to back without a break. Sean?
Yeah, so I can field this one. Well, a couple things. One is talking to internally and trying to figure out when a Zoom meeting is appropriate. And when you're having these meetings, someone needs an agenda and deliverables. I've been on way too many internal meetings where we've talked about the same project, same issue for 5 times, just because we get on, you're having that small talk at the beginning, and then you go through an hour and a half has gone by, and it could have been solved maybe with an email or if you had Slack or something. So figuring out from the beginning how to limit the amount of Zoom calls and the priorities of them.
Good. Thank you. Another question we have is, how do you expect your vendors to best assist you with projects? Greg, you want to, oh, Bob, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah, I think lead times with the shipping issues and that are currently existing, and how is that going to affect things with the manufacturers, perhaps their employees not having as many people working, understanding how that's going to affect the supply chain, so we can set expectations for our clients. I think that's how they can help us the most right now.
Okay.
I have one for Colin. How can office users provide collaboration and meeting space while respecting social distancing? And Sean, maybe you can chime in on this one as well at the end.
Oh boy, that's going a little outside of my expertise in residential design. We're thinking that through in our office. We've actually are in the process of kind of preparing. So in our office space, we actually are the managers of the condo association that owns the entire building, and then we have our own floor in the building. So we're sort of responsible for setting up the guidelines for the entire building, and so we're in progress right now. Fortunately, we're set up in a relatively open space with relatively few employees per square foot. I think the biggest challenge is going to be office spaces where the density has gotten down to, one person for 150 square feet, something like that. It's going to be very difficult. We're looking at having larger partitions around the offices and even creating wider aisles so people can have social distancing going back and forth to coffee. So it's a work in progress. Cleaning stations, protective masks and gloves, all that we're going to make available in the lobby and then have it on each floor of the building.
Okay, those are considerable changes. Sean, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's a piece of it also is how much space you actually have. For us, we were blessed to have moved February 1st into a larger office space so that if people do come in, they can definitely span out and each have their own table that more than 6 feet apart. But also kind of what Colin was saying is where do you get this equipment? Where do you get these hand sanitizing stations when it's been such pent up demands? And I will say, and they didn't pay me, I promise, but I'm having a call tomorrow with Staples because they've been reaching out saying they finally got this equipment, where I've been searching for it forever because we are a brand new showroom and we've never had these issues before. And trying to figure out where are you going to get all these supplies and what are we going to do to set up and protocols.
Okay.
Jen, I have a couple more. You want me to jump in here?
Go ahead.
Okay. And this is for everybody. Will the process and or priority of getting your projects photographed change going forward?
I'll continue to photograph my projects. I mean, it's always very important for us to have that as a marketing tool. So that will still remain part of our process when the project's over.
Great. Anyone else? You guys all feel the same way?
Absolutely.
It's important to keep that going. Yeah.
And we as the magazine appreciate that. Another question was, is anyone finding clients wanting made in America products more at this time? Has that come up at all?
It hasn't come up for
I
me.
haven't heard that yet. No.
Okay.
I would say, in the sense, yes, so one home under construction had cabinetry coming from Italy, and that obviously wasn't going to make it in time. So we've moved to domestic manufacturing of some of the millwork in the home, and I do think that's going to become a major issue of lead times, particularly from northern Italy, where I think most of that furniture comes from.
Mhm.
This issue did start for us, but it actually started way before COVID-19 when the tariffs were a big issue. And so a few of our manufacturers have actually switched to the United States so that we can actually get equipment. And so it's been more of a focus on that end and not necessarily from COVID-19.
Okay. Jen, that's all the questions I have through the Q&A. I know, do you have some other ones that were written in before?
Yeah, I'm going through them, and it looks like we have really touched on all the points. I think we do have some questions for Friday's panel, which is focused on, again, suppliers. And so I do want to remind everybody that we're going to be coming back together on Friday, May 15th. This week, and we're going to be joined by Stephanie Reed and Pierre Mata, Danielle Jones, and Carlotta Kuby, who all are service providers in our industry. And that's going to be at 1 o'clock again. And I don't know if that one has filled up. I know this one filled up quickly. I don't know, Kathy, if you have that information.
I don't off the top of my head. I know there are still spots, so there's registration available there. And just to let all you guys know, again, thank you for joining us, but this has been the most popular event that we've had so far. So lots of registrants. Everyone was really excited to hear what you had to say. Lots of engaged people, and we're well over 100 people have come on and stayed with us. These videos, the video of this will be available on the New England Home website, and probably tomorrow, maybe the day after, once we get the editing done. And then there's also some additional information on navigating this new landscape, also available on the New England Home website under Design Dialogue. You could click over to that and see some other design professionals, in addition to some here on the panel, who provided us their feedback on how they're operating during this. All right. That's all I have. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you on Friday. And thank you to all our panelists. You guys have been fantastic.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate
Thank
it.
you for
Feel your
setting
faces.
this up.
I've missed you
All
all.
I miss you, Kathy.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.